Okay, it's 11 o'clock. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks a lot for taking the time to listen in on blockchain and real estate industry. My name is Mark Ruppli. I work for Inacta. Inacta is a IT consultancy company in Switzerland, focusing on the real estate, the insurance, and the banking market. Inacta is also heavily involved in building up the blockchain ecosystem in Switzerland. And that's also the reason why I'd like to share our thoughts and our ideas about how blockchain can transform the real estate industry. I'd like to spend a few minutes on how we see the real estate industry, say a few things about blockchain and what it enables, and then share with you our vision. And besides the vision, I'd also like to share with you some details about the use case that we recently designed and built for a corporate here in Switzerland. And last but not least, I'd like to take 30 seconds on the Crypto Valley competition about real estate, try and get you excited about what we've got coming up there in the coming year. Okay, so let's hop into the topic. Real estate industries, how are they structured today? How do we see them? From our perspective, the real estate industries are highly specialized. Specialized in the sense of, if you count the different roles that you encounter in a typical industry, you easily end up with 15 to 20 or even more different roles. Those roles may be the architects, it may be the investors, it may be the users, it may be the appraisers, etc., etc. So this specialization also leads to a fragmentation. We see, on the one hand side, we see large corporations that offer all types or different types of services out of the real estate industries. But at the same time, we also see a lot of very small companies that, for example, only do brokerage or only do marketing or only do appraisals. So this fragmentation basically and this specialization, they basically lead to an inefficient operation from our perspective. Now, this is obviously quite a bold statement to name an industry to work totally inefficient. Perhaps I'd like to explain or give you some thoughts why we think it operates inefficiently. On the one hand side, I think within organizations, people have managed to set up their operations, their teams, their processes, their systems in an efficient way. And the inefficiency that we see typically comes across when these different specialized parties begin to interact and begin to transact. So that's our view on the industries. And then if we look at the markets where real estate is being developed and transacted, these markets are typically quite intransparent and illiquid. Intransparent in the sense of you never quite know whether you got all the information about the building that you're about to buy or that you're interested to buy. And obviously, since it's huge investments, it's also quite an illiquid market because it's not that easy to buy or to sell. It usually takes a process of 2 months, 3 months, 4 months until you've really evaluated a property and made your investment decision. So this setup of industries and markets basically generates three problems, or basically gives room for digitization efforts to improve the situation. On the one hand side, as mentioned, there's huge time inefficiencies, be it during a due diligence where you want to buy a property, or also once you own the property, when all these different parties, the facility manager, the property managers, the asset managers, need to work together to basically maintain the building and generate the yields that are expected by the investors. And then this fragmentation obviously also leads to inefficient data and information management. the data about one single property is usually spread across various systems, various databases, and usually also only a fraction of information of each building is in the one database or the other database, etc. So it's quite hard to get a good overview and an accurate overview of the property information that you're dealing with. And last but not least, the media breaks, as we call them in tech speak. Whenever people interact, usually today it's still Outlook based, so mail based, it's attachments, it's PDF reports. There's only very few, let's say, standardized ways or digitized ways of interacting among these different specialists. So our simple view in one sentence is, if these industries continue to think in silos within their organizations, within their specialized functions, it's really hard to create fundamental improvement. So that's basically our view on the industry. And if we then move on to what blockchain as a technology offers, we'll soon realize how a lot of these inefficiencies in the markets today can be overcome. So for those not that familiar with blockchain technology, these are the 5 capabilities a blockchain technology offers that in the past we didn't know or only partially knew within technology. The first one is called data sealing. So basically, blockchain enables us to cryptographically seal information. We can contain it, we can store it in a secure way. And that obviously helps us to keep private information stored in a safe place. If we look at how this works today, let's say the important real estate information is on paper documents, signed, perhaps stored away in a vault, or it's in a government office or archive, and the information is safe there, or we hope so that it's safe there, but it's basically not accessible. Then one of the most important features of blockchain technology is the value transfer aspect. So if we look at the web-based technologies that we have today, the internet as we know it today, we can easily transfer information, and blockchain now in addition allows us to transfer value. So that basically means if we can get a property online onto a blockchain in a secure and safe way, we can start transacting on that property, either as a whole piece or with multiple pieces. And I'll show a few details on that on the next slide. Then the third one in the middle is a single source of truth. So what blockchain allows us is to get that full view of a property. At the moment, as mentioned before, the property data and information is spread across databases. We're never quite sure what is correct, what is not correct, what is complete, what is not complete. So the blockchain gives us a good way to get this overview of a single property. And obviously, in order to produce that accurateness, we need traceability. We need the history of the property. And again, here, the blockchain with its features gives us the possibility to trace the data and to see kind of what happened in the past, what kind of renovations or remodelations were done, how was the occupancy of a building, etc. So in all sorts or all aspects of property, we can trace the data. And then last but not least, the fifth capability is automation. So blockchain allows us to automate processes on the one hand, and to define certain rules of contracts or set up rules in a digital way. The buzzword there is the smart contracting. So basically, we can embed rules that typically in today's world are in paper writing. We can digitize them and have them execute or be executed according to those rules. So Now, if we put these two things together, so large problems in the industry, at least from a digitization or technology perspective, and blockchain, we see two, or we believe there's two fundamental changes that can happen using blockchain. So on the left-hand side, on the shared economy side, that's basically how the markets work today. You basically have people that are using the property, and they pay a per use fee. So that would be the rent in the case of property. And on the other hand, the buildings in the middle are owned by banks, by institutions, and they're basically investing money and expecting a profit for it. What we also see today is crowdfunding. So there's traditional technologies out there, be it whatever, web-based or so forth, that allow you to invest in buildings. And what blockchain now enables is that we can bring those two things together. So since we can transfer value digitally, it is easy to basically offer what we call fractional ownership. We can basically give access to properties to a broader audience. So basically, we believe that blockchain is going to create these tokenized economies, and in the real estate market offer investment opportunities to larger audiences. So basically, you can invest, I don't know, $1,000 into an office building, something that you typically today cannot do. Then the second part of our vision, so besides the fractional ownership, we think what's going to happen is that the property data is going to come together. So on the one hand side, you as an owner, you obviously own the physical building, but through this blockchain technology and other technologies, we're going to be able to tokenize the data, so bring it onto the blockchain. And we can bring it all onto the blockchain. We can bring on the building data. We can bring on the accounting aspect. We can bring on the transactions, etc., etc. And I think this is a fundamental change to what we see in the markets today. Today, the owners, they hire a bunch of service providers that then maintain and manage their property, and they also manage their data, which leads to this disparate data solutions. And I think the owners, with this digitization that's happening, they have a stronger appetite to better know, manage, and control their own data. So we believe that owners will be working together with service providers and with IT companies to get a better handle on their data. So the vision would be, yeah, let's own, as owners, let's own our property data and make the best of it. Now, as mentioned before, there's a multitude of different specialists working on this specific property that we own. On the slide, just a few, or one of the most important from our perspective. And basically what a blockchain-enabled ecosystem could do is bring these people together and allow these people to work off the same data. So there will be no longer a sending of data between, for example, a property manager or an asset manager and an appraiser. Basically not creating reports, creating PDFs, sending them by email or sticking them in a data room and then someone else downloading it. The data would flow seamlessly. So the asset manager could open up in his system, give access to the appraiser XYZ for building, for this building here. And he can work off the current data immediately. So seamlessly without having to do double entry, etc., etc. So obviously this collaboration that's then possible also means, or the blockchain technology also means we can also create a transaction. So it's not just about information or seamless information sharing and collaboration, it's also about being able to execute the transaction. For example, between a property manager and a facility manager, you can do a digital transaction, agree on a fee and on the services that you want to purchase from him, and all this in a digitized manner. Now, an important point is I don't believe that all the data should or will be open. So, and again, here the blockchain technology helps us, is that we can decide who gets access to what information. And the beauty of such a system would obviously be if everybody's working off the same data, you will constantly have up-to-date information. So on a push of a button, you can create the property accounts. On a push of the button, you will get the overview of your tenants. You will get the overview of your occupancy rate, etc., etc. So we strongly believe that if this happens, or when this happens, we will have a much better world, or a much more efficient world in these real estate industries and markets. So that would be the vision. And now one example, a specific use case that we implemented for a corporate here in Switzerland, which is the process of rental deposit. So when a tenant wants to rent a new office, for example, he needs to put a deposit. And this is an example, without going in all the details, of the current process of this large corporate in Switzerland. And what we basically see is we see quite a few interactions between the bank, the property manager, and the tenant, a back and forth process. And we see a multitude of steps where basically people need to check whether an account has been opened, whether the money has been transferred, etc. So that was what we found at this client's place as a process as it's running today. And the typical duration of the process is between days and weeks until finally the rental deposit has been placed. And if we look at the process that we were able to implement with blockchain technology, as you can immediately see, and I flip back and forward, there's much less steps on it on the one hand, and obviously we were able to get rid of the intermediary, the bank, because basically the value of the rental deposit is now on the blockchain. So much more simple, much more convenient for the tenant, but also less work for the property manager. And perhaps for the technical people, we implemented this on the Ethereum blockchain using a smart contract. One of the findings was it's quite easy to set up or to build a proof of concept like this was, but we obviously had the still have the challenge of the digital currencies, because which tenant or how many tenants already use Ether to deposit their rents, or Bitcoin, or whatever cryptocurrency you wanna name. So this is one of the challenges that was up to a few weeks was still open. But now in Switzerland, there's two projects that have issued a stable coin, so a Swiss franc backed stable coin. And obviously in combination, if we're able to have a Swiss franc token, we can improve this proof of concept that we did and bring it into production for the Swiss market. Because people are thinking and earning their money in Swiss francs, and they want to have the safety of that currency, especially now in these times of turmoil on the cryptocurrency markets. So, and if we look at the duration of the overall process, perhaps as a last statement here, is that this whole process can be done within minutes rather than the days or weeks that we had before. Okay, so last but not least, as you can see, there's obviously in our vision, there's a huge potential for the industry. You can approach you can approach all these problems or topics on a quite broad basis, and therefore what Inacta has set up since 3 years now already is we've designed a competition, or we're running a competition on blockchain related startups. And the next competition that we're running is specifically for the real estate market. And what you can win here as a startup is basically $100,000 with no strings attached. So if you yourself have a great idea how to get real estate onto the blockchain, please submit your application to the Crypto Valley team. That's running this real estate competition, and date-wise, it's going to happen the end of March. This competition, and the submissions, they need to be in by the end of December. So if you hurry up and submit your thing, you'll be part of the party. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's more or less from my side. I hope I was able to get across my ideas or my vision on how blockchain can transform the real estate industry, and I'm happy to take any questions. Okay, got a question from Wouter. What blockchain startup should we look after to in 2019? Not quite sure I understand the question, but let me quickly elaborate a little bit. What we ran this year is we ran a market study on blockchain startups in the real estate space. And what we found is, we were actually quite surprised. We found more than 200 startup companies worldwide that are looking into real estate and offering solutions there. And what's interesting to us, or what also surprised us, is that most of them are tackling problems with regard to the value transfer. So basically, they're looking at solutions to offer fractional ownership. Yeah, are basically focusing on that area. And on the other hand, what we also found is that there's very few blockchain startups that are looking into the area of the property management side. So basically, in a way where all the information, or most of the information, is being dealt with on a regular basis, that area is basically hardly covered. There is a few, but compared to the fractional ownership ones, yeah, nowhere near it in terms of numbers. Okay, here's a bit more technical question. There is some concern about blockchain security when and if quantum computing arrives. Do you have any views on this? Not much, since I'm not that much of a technical guy. I think, as we all acknowledge, that the current state of the blockchain technologies, in terms of numbers of transactions that can be processed, is far too low. And I think there's different ways of solving that, and people are working on it. But I think, yeah, technology is still evolving there, and hopefully we can get to the numbers of transactions that, for example, the credit card networks can produce. Okay, so what should real estate companies do first? Start with a data strategy or look into what blockchain can do? I think, from my perspective, blockchain is just a means, or it's just a tool, it's just an instrument that offers us new stuff. So I think a first look at what it can do helps. But then obviously you need to look immediately into, okay, which problems do I have today and how can I solve it? And it may well be that those problems can be solved also with traditional technologies, or part of the problem can be solved with traditional technologies. And basically, I think from an architecture perspective, one needs to find out which technology solves which problem best. So basically what I would say is blockchain is not going to solve all those problems that I listed here in my slides. I rather think it's going to be a combination of technologies all around whatever data management, business process management, also business intelligence and blockchain. I think we're going to see a combination of these technologies that is really going to change the real estate industry. Okay, yeah, perhaps that's a good question too. The winner, he obviously gets the 100K with no strings attached, but in addition to that, he's also going to get coaching. So there's a group of specialists in terms of business models, of training, etc. So basically, you get some coaching and perhaps even more important, in the Crypto Valley in Switzerland, you will also get some office space where you can set up your office and get in contact with quite a few. I think it's more than 100 blockchain-based companies that are working in that same office building. So you will have a great exchange also with other startup companies and people building this ecosystem. So if you want to get more information about this competition, you can go to the cvvc.com homepage, and there you will find the competition. You will also find this office space, the Crypto Valley Labs office space. And obviously, if you shoot me a mail or link up in LinkedIn, I'm happy to share more information with you.